For my service learning placement, I was placed at Youth Villages. Youth Villages was founded in 1986 with the merger of two Memphis-based residential campuses. The mission that they have is Youth Villages helps children and families live successfully. One of the goals of Youth Villages is to take the children out of their home if they're not being taken care of and place them in foster care. While they're in foster care, Youth Villages works with the students and with the parents to help them get back to where they can all live together as a biological family. Youth Villages works with their parents and helps them get into places to deal with any drug addictions that they have. So in the end, hopefully that they can get their children back. Youth Villages serves a large population. There are many youth villages all around the United States of America, and here are a few that I've listed below. But Youth Villages takes children in from the age of their birth to age 22, but they usually only range from 12 to 17 is the main group that they get. And every year they serve more than 26,000 children and families a year. Root causes of problems that they deal with at Youth Villages is child neglect, child abuse, and parents that are involved with drug use. There are many other things that Youth Villages deals with. Some groups have illegal immigrants that are being shipped back to Mexico or places like that, and the children were born here in the U.S., so they are American citizens. So if the parents are being shipped back, the kids can stay here, but they have to be placed into foster care until their parents can get a green card or until they can be adopted. And that's one rare circumstance that I got to be involved with at Youth Villages because there were two little girls that I got to be very involved with. I got to go with them to their doctor's appointments. I got to babysit them, so I got to know them better. And just spent a lot of time with them. And their social worker, I got to go around with her and see how they were doing. And in their situation, their father was in prison here in the United States of America, but he was an illegal immigrant. And then the mother was in ICE custody because she was an illegal immigrant, and they were talking about deporting her back. So the little girls were placed into foster care for the time being, and before I finished my service learning, they were talking about adoption, so I'm not sure where that led, but many of the circumstances like that end up in adoption at Youth Villages. Funding. Youth Villages is a nonprofit which often leaves them relying on other people and things for them to continue helping children and families. A few ways that they make money at Youth Villages is they do donations, the government helps, and then they do fundraisers too. But to say their funding is sufficient is not entirely correct. Youth Villages is getting by, but could use more funding. When I did the interview with Reg and Betsy, they were talking about how they could use more money and how they could use it. So if they could use the funding, extra funding that they got, they could get more foster parents involved so that more children would have a place to stay while their parents were going through rehab or things like that. Preconceptions. The one preconception that I had when I started at the Youth Villages was placing children in the wrong homes for them. And I got to see that in my own perspective while I was there. I think that the system's good, but it's not perfect. All systems are not perfect, so there are just places where you have to be careful. They have to be careful where they place children, and they said that themselves. For one instance, whenever I was shadowing the social worker that I went around with, we went to one home that had a foster child, and she told me before we went in there that they placed this girl at this foster home thinking that everything would be okay, but they were under investigation because there were more people staying there that weren't supposed to be in the house. And that they were talking about abuse and stuff like that. So when we went there, she had to ask the foster parent a bunch of different questions. And in the end, I found out later on in the week that they did remove the foster child from that home because it was not the right house for her. So yes, it does happen, placing children in the wrong home. It does, but Youth Villages does their best, and DCS is involved as well to take care of the children and place them in the best home that's for them. What's unique about Youth Villages is that it's a nonprofit and it's helping children get placed into homes. They do free adoptions and they do introduction videos for the older children. And when I say free adoptions, so they do training and stuff like that for foster parents. But in the end, if the biological parents lose their parental rights and the foster parents want to adopt their children, they get a free adoption. Whereas if you go through something like DCS or something like that, you have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to do an adoption. But at Youth Villages, if you get a child from Youth Villages and do foster care and you end up wanting to adopt them, all of it is free. So it's a free adoption, which is really neat and beneficial for the kids. Introduction videos for the older children is really neat. They have a website that you can go to, and you can look at the videos of older children, and they ask the older children, like, what's your favorite music? What's your favorite thing to do? Just because for other people, adopting children, they usually want younger children so that they can raise them up to be the way that they want them to be. And really nobody wants 17 and 18-year-old kids to adopt because you don't know what's really going on in their life and you don't know why they've been in that system for so long. So it's really neat because Youth Villages partners with videographers and photographers to take pictures and videos of the older children to post them on websites so that they look appealing to other people when they're looking to adopt for a child. What would I change? If I had the ability to change one thing about the way Youth Villages would be to do better home inspections and studies of the adults, that would be parenting the children. And that goes back to my preconceptions that I thought at the beginning. I just think that with the money that the government has, we need to be able to do more to make sure that when we take their children from their biological families and homes, that they know that they're going to be placed somewhere else that's not going to be worse than where they were already at. Because it's happened more than several times. It's happened where we take them from their home, where they are confused and they think that they're loved and they're wanted, and then we take them and put them in a foster home where they could be treated worse than what they really were being treated at their home. So I think that we just need to be careful with that, and that was a preconception that I had, and that's what I would change. Skills, lessons, and discussions that helped me at my site. In this class, the exercise 2 that we did in week 1, it talked about putting myself in others' shoes. And I think doing that exercise, I can look back on it and think that I could use that, and I learned so much more at Youth Villages about putting myself in other people's shoes, because there are so many different angles to look at things before you fully understand what's really happening in other people's lives. Week 5, the power of empowerment discussion that we did, that really, really stood out to me. Not at Youth Villages, but at the foster parents' homes that I got to go into and listen to the social worker. Power and empowerment over the foster children was a big thing. And I'm not sure that people know that they're doing that, but adult empowerment over children is very, very used and abused in the system. And the group presentation and the animal and superhero discussion, I couldn't really think of a way to apply that in the Youth Villages site that I was at, other than just being tenderhearted. The animal thing, the animal discussion really helped me understand that things like that are really happening, and I have a tender heart for foster children. And lastly, what can others do to help the agency? The thing that others can do to help the agency is they can donate money so that they can get more news out there so people know about foster parenting, or they can they can help people get the money to do foster parent training and stuff like that, because that's what they talked about in my interview that I interviewed. The people over at Youth Villages said is they need more foster parents. So how can others get involved? That's the way. They need more foster parents, and that's how others can get involved. It's children of all ages, and it's for short periods of time if the biological parents finish rehab and stuff like that. And in the end, people will usually end up getting adopted, even though that they already have their biological kids. Parents just fall in love with these foster kids because they don't know what love is. So in the end, it's all great, but that's how people can get involved.